Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? I got to make sure I stay in the right frame, right? Have the mic up. Here we go. Once again, good morning, and welcome to the CARES event. I have to say, I had a sneak peek yesterday, so I'm a bit of a ringer, right? So this is going to be a great session. Thank you for joining us. Um, I bring greetings from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion here at Genworth. Um, the subject of financial literacy is so important, and this event just ties directly into um, to the importance of that subject. It not only touches caregivers. I know this is primarily for caregivers, but it spans across all cultures, all communities. We have 13 employee resource groups here at Genworth, and the intersectionality is just amazing. This can affect women, men, veterans, loved ones of veterans, African Americans, Latinos, Asians, anyone. So anyone listening to this is going to be a definite benefit. I think I took 4 pages of notes yesterday. So Kathy's going to talk to us for about an hour about how we keep our money. So just sit back and relax and enjoy the session, and thank you for attending.
Good morning, and special good morning to everyone joining us online today. We are thrilled to have you for day 2 of our special session with Kathy Sikorsky. We met Kathy at ILTCI when she spoke on a panel with Tom McInerney, and ever since the first day we met her, we knew she would be a great asset to Genworth and our caregivers. So we are thrilled to have her here today. Kathy is a practicing elder law attorney. She's also a very famous speaker and comedian, for those who didn't hear her yesterday. I don't know if she brought the granny panties back, but that is a forever moment in our Genworth shared culture now. So we are thrilled to have Kathy. If you want some more laughs this week for the Walk to End Alzheimer's that CARES is co-sponsoring, we're having Are You Smarter Than Andrea Say trivia tomorrow at lunchtime. So tune in for that. And with that, Kathy, happy to have you.
Good morning. So happy to be back. And I just want to say 1,500 and 15,000 are 2 very different things. And there's actually a system for this. About 2 weeks ago, right before Labor Day, my brother came from Mexico to visit my mom. And he came over to my house and he said, I need to get a laptop computer and Mom wants to pay for it. And I said, oh, okay, let her buy it. She buys stuff for everybody all the time. She takes people out to dinner. She can buy you a computer. You're hardly ever here. Now my mom will be 95 tomorrow. Tomorrow is her birthday. So she loves nothing more than giving gifts to people that she cares about. He goes back to Mexico. 2 days later, she calls me and says, oh my God, something terrible has happened. And I'm like, oh, Mom, did you fall? Did somebody die? Because those are actually my 2 choices. And she said, oh, no, I bought your brother a computer. And I said, oh, yeah, I know that. I told him it was okay. She said, no, you don't understand. I wrote $1,500 in the box, and I wrote the words $15,000, and now I have no money in my checking account. Oh, Mom. I said, all right. But she said, don't worry, I fixed it. I went to the bank, I talked to them, he went to his bank, and they said in a couple days everything will be fine. Now, when you're a caregiver and somebody tells you they fixed it, you roll with that. An hour later, my brother calls me from Mexico and says, yeah, I called my bank. They're not going to fix that for at least a month. So I told them we would just go get the money from my bank and give it back to Mom. Note the royal we. I'm in Pennsylvania, he's in Mexico. So I get in my car to drive to the bank, and this is a bank that my mom and I have gone to together for 30 years. So I call her and say, who did you talk to? And she says, Mary Beth. And I said, I don't know Mary Beth. And she said, oh, the girl who sits at the circular desk. I said, the receptionist? And she said, yeah, all the tellers that day were men, and I didn't want to talk to them. And I said, Mom, this is not a gynecological problem. This is a banking problem. So I go to the bank and I say, Mary Beth, I need to talk to someone about a banking problem. And I'm my mom's power of attorney, and here's her account number. She takes me in to talk to Claudette, and Claudette looks it up and says, yes, there's no money in your mother's account, and it's never coming back. And I actually say, good. That's what I want to hear, because I don't want you to have a stop payment on that check and cause another problem. She said, do you want a copy of the check? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do, because I got to go to the bank around the block and get that money and bring it back here. And she said, she looks at the check and she goes, who would cash this check? And I said, and she said, oh, mobile banking. Yeah, we always go by the writing, not the number. And I said, great. And she said, and by the way, get a certified check. Don't, be walking around with all that money in your purse. And I said, because I have been around the block a few times, figuratively and literally, will you cash it? And she said, no, we will not. We have to put a hold on it. So I go to my brother's bank. I put that piece of paper under there. I say to the teller, you see this bank? She goes, who would cash that check? And I say, and she says, yeah, mobile banking. We go by the writing, not the number. And so I said, look, I need to get that money now. And she said, I can write you a check. And I said, no, I need the cash. And she said, okay, because you need that much cash, I need to know what your occupation is to fill out a form. And I said, I'm a lawyer. And she said, oh, what kind of lawyer are you? And I said, oh, I'm an elder lawyer. She said, oh my gosh, my neighbor just got home. Her dad came home from the hospital. We think the power of attorney is doing something terrible. So I'm practicing pro bono elder law in the bank while I'm waiting for her to get the money so I can practice family pro bono law and take it back to the other bank. Which she gives me the money. I put it in my purse like I'm Al Capone's bag man. I try to get in the car. I have 13 minutes to get to the bank on the Friday before Labor Day weekend when it closes. I get in my car, I drive right around the corner, and sirens behind me. Apparently I am Al Capone's bag man. A police car, an ambulance, and a fire truck. And of course I pull over, and they go into the intersection where the bank is. And I think if that bank is on fire, I'm just going to light my own hair on fire and get this done. Fortunately, I guess just for me, it pulls into the doctor's office instead of the bank, and I get the money deposited. So we've learned a few things here. Number one, you can practice pro bono law anywhere. Number two, they go by the writing. Who knew? And number three, I can't remember what number three is. It'll come back to me though. But what we learned, oh, I know what it is. I was searching for a money story for you. And I have some other caregiving money stories, but I wanted a good one. So be careful what you wish for, because this just happened 3 weeks ago. Okay, so money and caregiving is no joke. I mean, it really affects everything we do. So we're going to talk about how to get, give, and keep your money. And some of you who saw this yesterday are going to see the same thing of a few things, because it was definitely integral about money, and I can't not talk about those things, both from all the caregiving tips and especially in the money thing. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about our tools. And I told our audience yesterday, yes, this is very beat up, because this is reminiscent of every woman who walks into a nursing home, an assisted living, my offices. Women don't come without their toolbox. This is their toolbox. And so I'm going to talk about 4 really important tools that you must have, because they're important for money reasons. And the first is, yes, the hammer. So for those of you who didn't see this yesterday, the hammer. This for me, well, let's talk about why it's a hammer, first of all. Hammers are so critical that they say, they wrote songs about it, right? If I had a hammer, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that is true. But you need the hammer in caregiving, because this is what's going to give you the authority to do everything you need to do without anybody questioning you. This is a durable financial power of attorney. Durable because it endures in case you become disabled. That durable is important. And financial, obviously, because you need to take care of someone's finances. Here's the 30-second definition. It is a document that you sign giving the authority to someone to act as if they are you in every possible capacity. So, if your dad gives you his financial power of attorney, you can get into his investments, get into his savings account, write checks for him, use his credit card, sell his house, sell his car, buy a car for him. It is an extraordinarily powerful tool. And so you have to be careful, and you have to choose wisely. But you have to choose. because you will see later that the things that you cannot do without this are daunting and will make your life miserable. And as I said before, there isn't anybody in this room or anybody that you know 18 years of age or older who shouldn't have this document. Because yes, Richard, and yes, ask questions at any point in time.
Are there any guardrails or criteria, restrictions for who can have a durable power of attorney? Is it wide open? Anyone can be so?
You can choose your agent. They obviously have to be an adult, but that's a good question in this sense. What if you choose someone who's incompetent, right? If a husband and wife, you take your parents and your dad says, I want to choose your mother and I'm going to choose me, and your dad is actually not capable of making financial decisions. I mean, there's no written rules that say you can't choose a person except that they have to be an adult. They have to be 18 years of age or older. But a smart lawyer is not going to let you choose someone who's incapable of doing the job. Of course, you have to tell the truth, because many times people will come into a lawyer's office and say, I need these documents, but we won't ever meet that person. It might be their son or daughter, and we may never meet them. So we're just assuming that that's someone who can handle their affairs based on what they tell us. The other side is a healthcare power of attorney, because you need both. These are two separate documents, and they really should be separate. They don't have to be the same person. They can be the same person, but a healthcare power of attorney does the same thing. Somebody can act as if they are you in all of your healthcare decisions with the doctor, Medicare, the veterans, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, the pharmacist. You can talk to them about any medical issues a person might have. And so a really, really critical tool. Now, if you have one of these and your parents, let's say you have it for your parents, and your dad is a widower and you're his power of attorney, and you're it, that's it. What if something happens to you? You really must have an alternate. You have to have someone else in that document, not maybe later, not can I fix it at another time. Like, you have to go home and look at these today and make sure someone is there who can actually take over, even if you're just on vacation, because, things happen, right? Okay, so that's our first tool. Our second tool, something I really like for the reasons most people don't know. This is a crescent wrench. Yes, I stole all these tools from my husband's toolbox and made one sparkly. This is a crescent wrench. It adjusts, and the reason it adjusts is because you want to be able to change different nut sizes, right? And as I said, we have all kinds of nuts in caregiving, and lots of nutty things happen to us. This is an advance directive or a living will. This is not a general healthcare power of attorney, because this is adjustable. You can say, if I am in a permanent vegetative state, if I'm not going to come out of this, what do I want? I want nothing. I want hydration. I want food. I want medical care. I want everything. And you check all the boxes. Or you just say, I want no extraordinary measures, right? And a lot of people, they have boxes that you can check on the form. The point of this is, it's really a pull the plug or don't pull the plug document, right? That's what it is, if you're in that place. The reason I like this, it's nice to have, but honestly, the reason I like it is this. My mom, yes, is going to be 95 on Friday. She has 8 children. Most of them have spouses. Most of them have children, and some of those children have children. I counted, I think there's going to be somewhere between 57 and 62 people in her hospital room if she goes into a permanent vegetative state. And there's going to be 62 different opinions about what we should do. But guess whose opinion matters the most? My mom. That person has decided. And so I will just say, I didn't decide this. She decided. And we're going to do what she wants to do, even if it's not what I would do. It takes the person who has to make the decision in the moment off the hook, because really the decision has already during a really difficult time. That's why this is a good document. And quite frankly, every time you walk into a hospital, they're going to ask you if you have a living will. They always want this one. They never ask for the other one, which you're making decisions all the time about. That's what they should really want. But they are going to ask for this. So you might as well have it, because if you get into that place, you'll be grateful that you already have the decision made. Okay. Now, Colleen made a little note towards this. Everybody in here probably has a will. Gee, I certainly hope you do. If you don't, go get one. But mostly people make these wills when their kids are little, if they have kids, or your parents made a will when you were young. And they take those lovely wills the guardians of our kids. Your brother stinks. I want my sister. And they finally can come to a decision. And they say, oh, and by the way, maybe your parents should be in charge of the money because our siblings are terrible with money. And they put that nice little will in the drawer, in the underwear drawer, and they never look at it again. So I want you to go in the underwear drawer, and yes, this is the granny panties that Colleen told you about. And I want you to produce the granny panties of wills. I'm trying to, yes, burn this into your retinas and make this a part of, yes, the Genworth lexicon. The granny panties of wills means it's new, it's fresh, you've had it for a long time, and you're gonna make a new one because we're going to cover everything now. No more sexy lingerie for us. It's time to do the right thing and make sure it's updated, it's fresh, it's clean, and we're doing the right thing because people change. People die. People end up not liking people that they put in their will. Your brother-in-law may be a horrible human being who left your sister, and he's still in your parents' will. You have to look at not only yours, but the people that you're in charge of. Make sure that they're new. Okay, so those are our important tools. That's what's going to get us through the next money questions. So what's behind door number 1? If you all have a red and a green card. If you have a spouse, raise your red card. Oh, pink, hot pink. Okay. If your parents are living, raise your green card. You can keep your red card up. Okay. All right, now put these down. If any of you have a picture of your parents on your phone, living or dead, can you get it out? And raise your hand. Marla, right here in the blue dress. Marlo, sorry. We just discussed this, didn't we? How to say your name. She's going to show us a picture. Oh, Marlo, too late. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Casey. Casey. John, do you have a picture? There's your dad. There's her dad. Show John. He's the prize patrol.
You guys kind of look similar.
Ah! A very handsome individual that looks like my husband. Very nice. Okay, the reason we talk about spouses and parents is because who's behind door number 1? When a spouse or a partner is let down by the team. So many of you may have seen a lawyer. Your parents may have gone to a lawyer for a will. Again, they did it a long time ago, and they haven't updated anything. Often this hurts the healthy person most. But there's other issues that they need to talk to a lawyer about, which we'll certainly discuss. The financial advisor, many people start out with their financial advisors in their 30s, 40s, even 50s, and their focus is, let's grow money. And that's awesome until you're in retirement. Because now you're thinking about, let me live as long as my money. And that's not just a sick person. That's a healthy person who might be a spouse who is going to be left behind if the money that you were growing has to be used for the care of a sick person. And if the financial advisor isn't addressing the retirement issue and the illness issue, you could leave a very healthy person destitute. Insurance professionals, you could have 100 insurance policies, but if none of them pay attention to the fact that there's a sick person who might in fact not be able to benefit from those until someone dies. So for example, they should maybe have long-term care insurance. What an awesome idea. If they're not talking to you about that, it's the healthy spouse who's going to suffer. And people are often very focused on the sick person and not the resultant healthy person. This is what we want to see in kitchens all over America. We want healthy spouses to be happy because they were taken care of. So what's the problem and how can we fix it? Well, the first problem is the way we save money has changed. Everything those healthy spouses had before was joint. My mother has never had an IRA or a 401k. That didn't even exist, as you surely know, right? But now we have two big assets, most people, a house and a 401k. And that rolls over into an IRA in retirement, right? 403b is another one, and that's just certain employees, but it's basically the same concept. And we are putting all our money into these wonderful 401ks. And if you are lucky, like you are here at Genworth, somebody is matching that money, which is free money. Free money. That's what match means. They should just call it free money, not match. Then people would say, wait a minute, free money? Let's just change the name of that, right? Because that's what a match means. And so if you are in a relationship, if your parents have had a 401k, the smartest thing to do as a family is to not put the money in even a spousal IRA. It's to put the money as much as you can where you're getting the free match. That's a brilliant financial idea. I am not a financial advisor. What I am is a person who sees what happens to this money when people get sick. Because IRAs, 401ks, 403bs can only be ever owned by one person. They are never, ever, ever joint. And they cannot be joint. So, if your dad has $1 million IRA and your mom worked at a job where she doesn't have that, or she has a very small investment, or she never worked in that kind of a field, and they did the smart thing and saved it in dad's IRA, and your dad has a massive stroke and goes into a nursing home, your mother has no access to that money. That is not her money. And she'll say, I'm a spouse. I should have it, right? I'm a spouse. Nobody cares. It's like shingles. Nobody cares. They really don't care because you have no legal access. Do you know what gives you legal access? The hammer. The hammer gives you legal access to that money, but only to take care of dad unless you have the proper language in there. Now, I'm from Pennsylvania. I can tell you what Pennsylvania does. I'm not licensed to practice in Virginia, but let me just say listen. Just listen, because it's probably true for you. In Pennsylvania, if the power of attorney doesn't say, my agent can have unlimited gifting power to give whatever she wants to herself, your mom still has no access to that money. She literally has to gift it to herself. It's a gift to her. It's not her money. If it says limited gifting, and this is why I want you to go home and look at these documents if you have them for a loved one. And if you make them up for yourself, look at them. Because some attorneys don't practice elder law. They might practice estate law, but they don't practice elder law, and they might not pay attention to this. There used to be a thing where lawyers would only put in limited gifting because they didn't want anybody to steal grandma's money, right? Except grandpa needed the money, and nobody was paying attention. Limited gifting means you can only have $17,000, right, what it is right now, $17,000 a year, which is the federally protected gift amount, right? Spouses don't want to live on $17,000 a year from $1 million IRA that is basically all their money. So you have to look at this, and you have to pay attention to what your power of attorney says and what authority it gives you. But you really have to know that you have no authority without this document. None. Now it gets worse. I promise I'll do some fun stuff later because this is the insult to injury. In the last couple years, they've passed something called the Secure Act, which applies to IRAs and 401ks, 403bs. And it used to be that you could stretch. You could give your IRA when you die to your spouse, and she could stretch it over her lifetime. Then she could give it to her children, and they could stretch it over their lifetime. And then they could give it to their children, and they could stretch it over their lifetime. Now, you know this is mostly pre-tax money, right? Unless it's a Roth, which is a different story. But what you're doing, of course, is delaying the tax by just stretching it out and taking what you have to take when you have to take it. And it was an awesome legacy tool that you could help pay for maybe your kids' college or a house and your grandchildren's college. It was wonderful. And they're on to us. And they said, I don't think so. We want our tax money. So the only thing you can do now, with a few exceptions, is have your spouse get it and stretch it. She can inherit it. That's the way she gets access. But remember, you're dead in that story. You're not alive and sick. You're dead. She can inherit it and stretch it out over her lifetime. But she cannot give it to your children and they can stretch it over to their lifetime. She can give it to them, but they have to take it all out in 10 years. So $1 million, right now they're arguing about how that has to happen. But let's say your kids take out $100,000 a year for 10 years. Let's say you have one kid. You know what that's going to do? That's going to bump up his income $100,000 a year for 10 years. Or he can take the $1 million and he'd probably, I guess, pay the highest, for sure, the highest tax rate. It's an income tax drain. Why do you need to know that in long-term care? Well, you should know it anyway, right? But in long-term care, you need to know it for this reason. When people get sick, they decide what pot of money they're going to use to pay for care. And they almost never use those IRAs because they want to save them for their families, right? Ultimately, maybe, if dad's in the nursing home, maybe we'll even just sell the house and we'll use that money. But we've got this big, huge pot of money here. You need to rethink that. This needs to be a conversation with an elder lawyer and a financial planner saying, maybe we'll just use all of dad's money from his IRA because it's taxed to him. He's definitely at the lowest tax rate that possible, right? He doesn't have any other income except his IRA. We'll use that to pay for his care. We'll pay for the nursing home. We'll pay for people to come in 24/7. We'll use it for everything. And that house, yeah, we're going to keep that because we got to step up and I know, really, I'm really not a financial planner. I just look at this stuff. All that means is it's a better deal. We're going to buy some life insurance, right? That's a better deal for my kids and grandkids. The Secure Act changed the way we look at how to fund sickness. They didn't think that's what we were doing, but we're looking at it from that perspective. And most people are not even under the impression that they can't stretch this money out over generations. The only exceptions are special needs, which is awesome, disability, if you're leaving it to a disabled child or someone with a chronic, there are a few exceptions, but they're very, very few. I'd rather you just really look at this with your financial advisor, if this is you and or your family member that you're caring for, to decide how best to spend this money. Okay, here's some misconceptions. You're not, yeah, we are. You also could ask the person, you're in sixes, ask the person next to you if their parents are on Medicare or if they're on Medicare. And then if the answer is yes, raise your green card. One, two, three. Okay, 3 green cards. So you are dealing with Medicare. And I'm going to tell you, John, right here, our last green card, the 3rd, she gets a prize because her parents are on Medicare. Here's the misconceptions. They believe, and every person you know who's on Medicare believes that their long-term care expenses are paid for by Medicare. And I know you don't know that because of where I'm standing right now today. I know you know that, and I know you even tell your parents or your family members this, and they don't believe you. They believe Medicare pays for long-term care. Just like my mom asked me the other day if I could do some estate work for a friend. Did I know how to do that? Your closest friends and family are not always the people who know you the best. People think that their spouse has his or her own money, and they might, but I just told you why that's a problem. Because if your spouse has $1 million in an IRA, that might be a problem for you if you're depending on that as your living expenses for both of you. My spouse can take care of me. Okay, you're 70. He's 75. You can take care of me. You fall down once, who's going to lift you up? It's daunting what caregiving is. And you know this because you're in the CARES org, but the people, this is for the people in your life as much as it is for you. And The next two, my spouse gets all my Social Security and my spouse is my beneficiary. Yes, that's really great, but you're not dead. Powers of attorney and for what we do is for live people, and wills are for dead people. And we're talking about what happens if you're alive and you're sick, you're unwell. It doesn't matter that your wife is the beneficiary of your IRA. She can't get to it until you die. It doesn't matter that she'll get your Social Security. It doesn't matter that she's going to get 10 life insurance policies. While you're sick, it doesn't matter. And Medicare is free. Medicare is so not free. Nothing I'm talking about today is free. IRMA, if you don't know what that is, it's the income, oh geez, I always forget the second, income resource monthly something. This is what IRMA really is. I always say Irma Bombeck was funny. If you knew her from a long time ago, she was awesomely funny. This Irma is so not funny. This Irma is a tax on your Medicare Part B. So if anybody in your family is paying for Medicare, they're paying $164, I think, and 10 cents a month. If they take too much in income out of that beautiful IRA that they have, because right, that was pre-tax dollars, that can go all the way up to $560 a month. It's not the base rate for everyone. It depends on your income. And guess what they do? They check your tax return every single year. You can run, but you cannot hide. And so people don't know. So remember that healthy spouse question? You're taking a ton of money out of your IRA to live. Guess what? She has to pay it too. You both have to pay it. So these are misconceptions that can leave a healthy destitute. And this is what they don't understand. And I talked about this yesterday. I was so happy to be able to do a focus group and get some really good questions. And one of the questions I asked them, which I said yesterday, is, do you ever get surprised by the cost of care? And it still happens, even with us, even with people who look at it, know about it, and are sort of in it. We still get surprised because it goes up and up and up. And the cost of care means so much more than just bringing someone into your house or a nursing home. We pay $7,000 to $10,000 out of our pocket every year for caregiving, out of our pocket. That's a cost of care. We might try, and people do try, oh yeah, you have this great cost of care thing. You know that, right? I said, make it a party game. Show this to people. It's amazing. How much is care in South Dakota? Maybe you might want to move there. I don't know. I haven't checked it. I should check it because I keep looking at my own zip code, trying to see how much is the cost of care. But you have it for all over the country. You can show people, just like I said, as a fun party game, do you have any clue what the cost of care is? And then people like to say, I'm not worried about the cost of care. We'll just get Dad on Medicaid and we'll take all Mom's money, we'll give it to all our siblings, and we'll take care of her. But we have something called the 5-year look back, which means if you ask the government to pay for your care, which is Medicaid, they want to know where your money went for the last 5 years. Every gift you give, every computer you bought for your son, they want to know, where did everything go? And they may ask for that money back to pay for your care. You go on a penalty period. They're not paying until you either can legitimize it or you pay it back. That's another cost of care that a healthy spouse could suffer, right? So the point of the system is to make you destitute. That's it. That's the deal. If we make you destitute, then you can have government funds. We're going to try and make that not happen. So in long-term care, what are the things we have to pay attention to for a spouse? Gifting. Make sure it's in there. Gifting. Let her gift. Let him gift. We have to have gifting. Beneficiary designations. This gentleman right here told me he has worked for Genworth for 26 years. Am I right? 26 years. When he came into Genworth, I'm sure they had life insurance. I'm sure he filled it out. I don't know if he was married at the time. His parents, if so, were probably his beneficiaries. I hope that he has checked that beneficiary designation 1, 3, 5, 7, 8 times Because again, people change, things change. I honestly, as an attorney practicing in a small town, can't tell you how many times people came into our law offices and the ex-wife was the beneficiary on their work policy. Now, weirdly, there's actually some legislation that helps with that, but maybe not so much. It depends. You've got to pay attention to beneficiary designations. But why is it important here? It's important because, again, that language in gifting has to be in the power of attorney. You want language that says, I can change beneficiary designations. So if you find a mistake, you can fix it. And if you don't have that language, you can't change those beneficiary designations. Only the person who owns the policy can do it. But if you have the language, you can change it. Same with life insurance, obviously, right? Any kind of transferring of assets. They can have, if a spouse has her own 401k or IRA, it's often protected in a long-term care situation. And then, you know, the big M, Medicaid planning. Yes?
Kathy, when you mention this kind of thing, like selecting I can change beneficiary, is that like in a checkbox list, or do you have to know that to say, hey, by the way, I want this? Like, are these kinds of selections clear when setting up
doing your
power?
power? No, yes, good question, and they should be. We call them in Pennsylvania hot powers, right? Ones that would be very important to have, but can also be very, they can really, really do some damage if you put them in the hands of someone who is not a trustworthy person. So we call them hot powers. I would like to believe that attorneys go over these things and talk about why. Some do, some don't, which is why learning about it yourself is really critical. I would say as a standard, those two things especially are not in there. They actually don't put them in unless you talk about it as a standard. And especially if you're not a spouse. If you're going to be taking care of someone else, like your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, those two would probably not be in there, or they would be in there in a limited way, or they would be in there and say they specifically do not grant those powers. So that's why you have to, these are maybe 10, 15 pages long. You have to read them, my friends. You have to read them. And by the way, as a little aside, which I don't have in there at all, I always have a new paragraph with digital assets in there. I just think you should know this, that you have access to my digital assets. I am giving you permission. I don't know that anybody's actually tested this with Google and Apple. They did before, and they kept losing. And so we've come up with a Uniform Digital Assets Act across the country. But a lot of attorneys haven't caught on to that fact. But you want somebody to be able to get into your phone, right? Or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't want to have digital assets in there. But know that it might be in there. Okay. Door number 2.
Hey, Kathy.
Yes.
We have a question that came through online. You've got 55 people watching, so let me
Awesome.
get one of these. How do you suggest a power of attorney caregiver protect the assets of an elder parent recently widowed from a new boyfriend or girlfriend? From someone new.
Okay, so a couple things. Number one, the way the assets are tracked. So if mom has a house, obviously don't let her deed the house to the new boyfriend or girlfriend. Keep the assets in a way that they are singularly protected for mom. If she has an IRA or 401k, we all know that's protected, right? Because she owns it. They can't get in. I would say if the power of attorney is vigilant, to just keep an eye on those bank accounts, investment accounts. Talk to the bank and the investment person to say, look, if my mom comes in and does anything weird or strange, I'm the power of attorney, you have my documents, please call me. Put a note in her file that says you're going to call me so that we can discuss it. I'm concerned about some things that, she doesn't have to say anything more than that, just I'm concerned, and so you need to call me. I am protecting her. And I would hate for the bank or the investment people to be liable for something if we could stop in advance. Capiche? As my grandfather would say. Okay, door number 2. Who has a dog? Oh, Richard. Richard, you got our last prize. Because I know, Colleen. Oh, you gotta have a prize for a dog.
What kind of dog? It is a mix of Labrador Retriever and a herding dog.
Who knows what kind of dog they have?
It's a mix. I'm trying to say I don't want to say it's a mutt. It's a mutt.
Okay, this is about our children and children. But we love our dogs so much, I decided to go with dog. Children. There's two kinds of children. There's minor children and adult children. Why would we talk about minor children in a long-term care issue? Because I don't know if you're going to get hit by a bus tomorrow. And you might have minor children. And the kinds of things that you have to think about for minor children are typical, right? And nobody wants to plan for a long-term care event when they have minor children because they think they're too young. It's not going to happen to them. But here's the thing. Even if you're young and your kids are healthy and your partner is taking care of your kids, and we'll talk about the last two in a minute, it doesn't mean they don't need money. It doesn't mean money isn't going to become an issue. And in fact, it's probably a bigger issue if you aren't in retirement, right? Because you need money for other people besides yourself. And so if this applies to you when you're taking care of someone and you haven't thought about it, I want you to, but if you even have, like say your sister is taking care of your mom right now and she has minor children. I hate this stat, but I throw it out there all the time. 25%, first of all, 25 to 30% of caregivers are millennials, number one. So they're young people. 25% of caregivers die before the person they're caring for because it's hard. If you have a special needs child, you have a special reason for looking at a long-term care event because you're not dead. See, this is the problem. A lot of people plan for special needs issues when, if I die, what should we do? The problem is if you are sick, they want your money for your care, not your special needs child. Yikes. People don't think about that. And I bought life insurance. What's wrong with that? Somebody raise your hand and tell me what's wrong with that sentence. You're dead. Exactly. Adult children are different because this is about caring for your parents. They think you live far away, so it doesn't matter. I cannot tell you how many long-distance caregivers there are in the world. A lot. 2 hours, 10 hours, across the country. But it's still taking time and money for them to care for you in some capacity. And, I'm not going to tell, my kids don't need to know anything. I'm handling it. But here's the flip side of that. We're going to move in with you. Yay! No, you're not. Yay! You have to talk about this stuff as adult children of people who may need care or who are even in care, because you might not be at this point yet, but you got to talk about what are we going to do at that point. And there in my will is the same problem as insurance, right? So, minor children have a bucket. These are the things that go in their bucket. But you're going to need money for that bucket, and it has to come from somewhere, which is why I always want to add to the conversation that long-term care isn't always just for old people. And old is relative. What does that even mean, right? But there are people in their 50s and 60s who have minor children. Yeah, I know. I did. We've become an older parent generation as well. So there are people in their 50s and 60s who have kids in college, who have kids in high school. They have to be having this conversation about themselves. And then the adult child is a different bucket. Yes, they might be caregivers, and we'll talk about a little bit about how we can help them out. But also, this financial help is, sure, do you expect your adult kids to financially help you? But here's the other question. Are your parents helping you? Are your parents actually helping you? And if they get sick, is that financial help going to go away? And what's that look like? If you're depending on that, maybe you need to have another conversation. And again, living arrangements, yeah. You really have to talk about living arrangements because a lot of people think they're going to move into their kid's house. And maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe, are you going to take $50,000 of mom's money and build in-law quarters onto your house? And then whose money is that? Because now it's on your house. Now it's a part of your asset. And guess what? That look-back period, that 5-year look-back period, they said, excuse me, Jane and Jim, you have $50,000 of a mother-in-law quarters. I think you need to pay that for mom's care in the nursing home. It could happen. You can fix that problem with proper planning. You can fix that problem with proper discussions and proper legal intervention. But before you create the problem, I suggest you talk about the plan. Because if you really are going to spend $50,000 to put an addition onto your house, you better consult not just a contractor, an elder lawyer. Because you're doing it because mom isn't well. That's why you're doing it. And that's how you could end up in a Medicaid problem. I need to talk for 5 seconds about estate recovery, because I told you nothing's free. Nothing is free. The one thing they tell you when someone goes into a nursing home is they can keep their car, they can keep their house, and they can keep their personal stuff. You can keep it. And everybody's like, yay, we can keep it. And Dad goes into the nursing home, and we use all his money to pay for it. And they told us we can keep the house, so we run out of money. And now we apply for Medicaid, and we get Medicaid. And for 10 months, the government pays for his care properly. And then Dad passes away. And the government now says, you have a $120,000 nursing home bill. Thank you very much. We'll take it out of the house that you kept. That house is not yours to keep. That house is not yours to have for an inheritance if there's a Medicaid amount over here that you owe. So while you're thinking it's free and we kept the house because we're going to inherit that, know that you're going to have a bill that comes from the government that you have to pay. If you die with any assets, not life insurance because that automatically goes, but if you die with any assets and you have a Medicaid bill, that will be expected to be paid back. So, how do children get, give, and keep their money? Get paid. I want you to get paid. If you are taking care of someone and you were either on the phone for 3 hours after work because they live 3 hours away from you, or you go home from work, but first you stop at the grocery store and the pharmacy, and you make mom's dinner, and then you make sure she has a bath, and then you make sure she gets to bed safely, and you make sure she gets her meds, and then you go home, you're working. Unpaid, the 53 million to 44 million unpaid family caregivers are not unpaid people. They're working people. They're just unpaid family caregivers. And there's no reason why you can't get paid if that money that mom would pay a caregiver that she has and would ultimately go to a nursing home, but you're keeping her out of a nursing home by caring for her, can be paid to you. And if I'm talking about your sister, your brother, or someone else in your family who quit their job, went part-time, is making a complete, financial break so that they can take care of someone in your family, know that they can be paid with your loved one's assets. It's okay. It's legal. You just have to have a caregiver agreement. You have to have a legal document that says, this is what I'm doing, this is how much I'm going to get paid, it's the going rate in my town, because I have the Genworth cost of care information. You already have information that nobody else has. And this is, and you're going to sign it with a notary, and you're going to get a lawyer to do it. And so that 5-year look back, when they say, oh, you've been gifting, $1,000 a month to your daughter, we're like, oh, no. That's income because she was paying me for the work that I've been doing to save you, the state, money because I was caring for my mom. That's one way to get paid. If you have a family member who doesn't have assets, there's other ways to get paid through Medicaid, through companies who are taking those benefits and paying family caregivers. Adalie is one. She is in Virginia now. This woman is awesome who created this, Maggie Norris. And AID, I think ALY. It's in your notes. You're all going to get a super handout. Don't worry about it. You're going to get all this information. And that's a way to also get paid. So if your family member doesn't have assets, in fact, you can probably still get paid. This is one in Pennsylvania that I also talk about. This is what I want you to do. I want you to 1099 yourself for a couple reasons. Number one, it legitimates what you're doing, right? So that we don't have that 5-year look back problem. Number two, it adds to your Social Security. Why would you not do that? And number three, if you have that money and you want to then put it in your IRA, you can because you're a working person. It's another way to get paid and also pay yourself for the future so that you're not in this position in retirement, so that you have a way to keep your money, to get, give, and keep your money. Filial Responsibility Act. This is 27 states and territories that say if they want to, you have to pay your mom's nursing home bill. Virginia's on that list, and so is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, to my knowledge, is the only state that enforced this about 25 years ago. And they made this poor guy pay $90,000 of his mom's nursing home bill after she jetted off to Greece when she got out of the nursing home. True story. And he had to pay. He fought it, but he had to pay. My understanding is, first of all, that all the bar associations are fighting really hard to get these laws off the books because the laws are from the 1920s when nobody paid for anybody's care, right, or family members, and they didn't want people to, well, the state didn't want to pay, but they didn't. They just didn't want people to be destitute. And so they put these laws on the books that you have to take care of your parents if they don't have any money. So what I am seeing is, number one, I haven't seen Pennsylvania do it again since the 90s. And number two, I'm seeing that the talk amongst attorneys is, this doesn't seem to be happening because we are being very honest about what assets a family has. Don't try to hide money. This is what mom has. This is what we're going to use to pay for her care. And now, yes, we've run out of money legitimately. And it seems that as long as you follow the legitimate course, that you're probably going to be okay. But I have to tell you that that's out there. That's my mom, by the way. I guess you guys figured that out. That was my mom. Okay, door number 3. This is your legacy. And it's still not about dying. This is about people who say, I want to leave money. I have worked hard all my life. I have saved a lot of money. I'm retired now. I have made it. I'm in on the good side. And I want a legacy. I want to leave something to my children, my grandchildren, my favorite charity. But I forgot about this puzzle piece. I forgot that maybe this could ruin my entire plan. So, misconceptions. Life insurance will cover it. Maybe. Not whole life. If you have a whole life policy that is worth more than $1,500, that money is to be used to pay for your care. $1,500 isn't very much. So if you or your loved one has a whole life policy worth $10,000, $20,000, $80,000, $100,000, you have to claim that as part of the assets to pay for care. So term life is okay. If people keep it, they get to retirement and we don't need life insurance anymore. Our kids are grown up. We paid for college. No, it's good. We don't need it, so they get rid of it. Whole life is often used as an investment, but it's not protected from having to use that money to pay for a nursing home. My IRA's beneficiaries, again, you're dead. While you're sick, your IRA has to be used to pay for your care if that's all you have. If that's all you have. And yes, if your spouse has control over everything, that might be good. First of all, let's hope that they do. And secondly, that's great, but they can't stop the train of having to pay for care. So you have to figure it out. And if your kids don't need it, fantastic. Spend it all. Spend it all. First, just take as many trips as you can or whatever it is that gives you joy. But if your kids don't need it, but keep in mind, if your parents are telling you, I'm saving money for my grandchildren, not you, I took care of you, but I want this to go to my grandchildren, keep in mind, you got to figure out a way to do that if you're caring for them and if they need care. And one way you could do that is you could pay yourself and you could save it for their grandchildren. If that's an important part of their legacy plan, you can help with that in a way that allows you to also be a family caregiver and ease up some of the stress. If you are not, if you're spending that $7,000 to $10,000 a year and you are not using that on your family like you need to buy a new car, to take your vacation, to, this is why getting paid is not a bad thing. Let's not turn money into a bad thing in and of itself. You are doing yeoman's work by caregiving. Okay, so how do you do this with your legacy? Well, you got to do planning. You've got to do planning, right? And long-term care insurance, here we are in the best room in the house. That's one way to actually protect a legacy, is to have another stream of income, right, that's going to pick up the slack. And gifting and those beneficiary doesn't. Some of these answers, I know, you're seeing the same thing all the time, right? You're seeing the same answers, but here's the thing. It's used for different things. The answers are the same, but the way you use the answers are different. Are you using it for legacy? Are you using it for grown children? Do you have a special needs child? Do your parents have a special needs child? Do you have a sibling that you need to pay attention to if somebody gets sick? Not dead, sick. So, these are the questions you need to be asking, right? And Richard asked me yesterday, who is the I and the you in this question? And it's actually both you and the people that you're caring for, right? What kind of care do we want? And how do I expect others to help along with that? And how am I going to pay for it? You have to have this 6-point conversation. Sit down with yourself and have this conversation. And then you have a gazillion choices about what to do. And that requires a little bit of homework. And it requires, again, some conversation about where you want to put your money, where are you going to put your money, how are you going to put your money. And these are money answers. These are money answers to a caregiving problem. And these are the 9 things that you're going to walk into a lawyer's office with. It's on your handout, and you just walk in and say, I need to talk about these 9 things. And some of those things might apply to you and some of them might not, but most of them probably will. And if you have a family member, yesterday I was telling them, if your parents won't do this, it's a struggle to get them to do things, you take them with you to the lawyer's office, not for them, for you. And you say, I'm going to go do this. I want you to come with me and hear it. It's not for you, it's for me. I just want you to hear what the lawyer has to say, what kind of planning we're going to be doing, and why this is important. And if at the end of it, they want to do something, I'm sure the lawyer will be more than happy to take them on as a client, right? So, you have robust benefits in this company, robust, that people don't have in many, many different companies. I want to tell you how to use them from a caregiving perspective. Your EAP has a free legal consult for 30 minutes and then discounted legal services. If you don't have documents, that's a great place to start. But here's what I also want to say. If you talk to this attorney and you say, can I bring my mom, my dad, my brother, and my sister? And I would also like them to have the discount. I kind of think you'd get it. No lawyer turns away business, and certainly not family business. They would love to do that. But you already have this built in for yourself. And I was telling him, my Nana was my dependent. She lived with me and my husband, my dog, my 2-year-old. It was crazy. But she lived with us, and my accountant said, are you feeding her? I said, of course we are. Does she get heat? Yes, her room is heated. He said, she's your dependent. And we didn't have dependent care savings back then, but I don't know. It's possible. You should certainly ask your accountant if you can use that from your dependent care savings account, if you have that here, because there is such a thing. And your loved one might be your dependent. Like, is your mom, did you build that in-law quarters? Is that just it, and she's not paying to stay there? If so, she's your dependent. You have all kinds of great, you have paid, oh God, most people don't even have paid family leave. You have awesome leave. You have mental health benefits in more than one way. And if nothing is going to make people more crazy than caregiving, I almost don't know what it is. Please, please, please understand that it is such a great thing to be able to talk to someone about how hard this is and how to tackle it, how to get tools to tackle how hard this is. That's what it's for. And then your ergs. Somebody said you have 13. I knew it was more than 12. 13 ergs. I said, I want you to take this information, and you told me they're intersectional, which is awesome, but I want you to tiptoe into every little erg and say, hey, you should probably watch this video, because it's very likely, we're talking about whatever this erg is about, but it's very likely somebody in here is caring for a parent or a sick spouse, right? Use that. And then your FSA actually might be able to pay for adult daycare. I checked that with a benefits specialist last week, and she said it can be used for adult daycare. So if somebody has a spouse who is not well and they're taking care of them, that's a place to get money that people don't pay attention to. Take the match. Take the free money that Genworth wants you to have. Take the match. You all have a 401k match. Take the match. And you also get financial advice. I think that's through your EAP, but I'm not exactly sure. But you do get that. You get financial advice. These are financial questions. What's that Secure Act going to do? How does that affect what's going on with my IRA, my 401k, right? If I want to leave that. What is that going to do? And then, obviously, you have group long-term care insurance. Special thank you to Valerie in benefits and Colleen for that. But I have another thing, but quick, I want to say. So happy to be able to come here. I want to thank Richard Benson and Colleen Dennis and Melvin Smith, who was so kind to make sure this happened, and my audio guys and video guys back there, Dave and Ryan. It was really a great opportunity for me, but I'm so happy to be in a company that recognizes how important this information is. We're not done yet. Don't jump out yet. Get your phone out, grab this QR code. It'll be like 5 quick yes/no questions kind of a thing, and then you can click on that money handout, and you will get the handout for this whole thing. If for some reason you can't do that, Colleen does have the handout.
Yeah, we'll be sending
It'll be sent out for both the money and the legal, and we also have a paper eval if you'd rather do that. And then, now no cheating if you were here yesterday, because we want to do a quick game as soon as you're done that. Colleen, you have a question?
Before we do the game.
Good.
Okay, this is a follow-up from the first question.
Okay.
What if the elder parent remarried the boyfriend or girlfriend who has the bad intentions, and now they're the spouse? What can a power of attorney do to protect assets then?
So in the last 15 minutes, they got married. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, they were on to us,
Yeah.
and they got married. They said, I'll fix you. I'm getting married. Oh, man. Okay, they're married, right? And by being married, your IRA is still good. Not in divorce, but in in death. Your IRA is yours. Like, that's protected. I know that in that regard. But with marriage comes certainly a lot of wonderful rights and responsibilities, but rights. And so if they get married, I mean, you cannot stop what they're entitled to as a spouse. It still doesn't mean that they necessarily have to turn property over to them. Maybe this is a gifting conversation now, right? Maybe, Mom, do you want to gift stuff to your kids now that you're married? Do you want us to have your house or some of your investments or whatever? Maybe it's time for that now, because now Joe is going to be entitled to that stuff as a spouse under certain circumstances. Just getting married doesn't necessarily give him access and right to everything, but it sure as heck puts a lot more on the table, and it's a bigger problem. And I mean, I'm going to say, talk to an attorney and make sure Mom understands what she's doing. Does she really understand what she's doing from a financial standpoint? Because she might not want to do that at all. She might be getting married because he's Prince Charming, but she doesn't think about the money part, and it's not important to her. She thinks her kids are going to get everything because she wrote that in her will. Maybe, maybe not. You have to have a really important conversation with her. Okay, time for the game. Which is older? My mom, who will be 95 tomorrow, this is in celebration of her birthday, and yes, she's a Phillies fan, and yes, they won yesterday. My mom or Old Dominion, you know, the university. I think it's a university, right? Old Dominion. Take a guess. It's for a prize. Even if you won one, it's a different one. Oh, you can't. He was on yesterday. Yeah, if you know the answer. You know? You watched yesterday. All right, well, I got 3 people here. Old Dominion. Old Dominion. No, my mom. Marlo gets a prize for being brave. My mom is older than Old Dominion. Okay, I know you were on here yesterday, so Virginia Tech. Mike. I only have 3 people. You can't, yeah, online. Tell somebody online, Virginia Tech. Well, I'm going to tell you, Virginia Tech is definitely older. Find out who that is. We're going to give you their prize, Colleen. Okay, Colonial Williamsburg. All 3 of you who weren't here yesterday, you raise your hand if you think my mom, or Colonial Williamsburg, is older than my mom. Raise your red card if you think Colonial Williamsburg is older than my mom.
We do have an online person playing too.
Okay, and what are they saying?
Julie Zemian says Colonial Williamsburg is older than your
Is
mom.
older than my mom. You are all incorrect. Colonial Williamsburg was actually established in 1932. It's a trick question because you all think Williamsburg is really old, which it is, but not Colonial Williamsburg. Okay. Busch Gardens. Busch Gardens. Beer's been around a long time. My mom, she's so much older than Busch Gardens. Okay, and here it is, where you work. Genworth Insurance, who's older? My mom's 95. My mom or Genworth Insurance. Anybody online playing, Colleen?
Tabitha Garcia said Genworth is older.
Tabitha is right. Genworth is really old. You can't see that, but I think it says 1871. Yeah. It has been around a very long time. Okay. You are so fortunate to have Richard, Colleen, Melvin, Brian. You are so fortunate at Genworth to have such a company that recognizes how caregiving is a part of our lives in such a big way, right? And I have a friend who does human connection speaking, and he says, everybody likes to say to people who are strong and do these hard things, you know, you got this, no problem. But it really should be, I got you. And I will say your company has I got you in a big way. And I would like to be a part of that, even though I don't technically work here. I have a badge, though. To say I got you in the sense that here's my email. You are welcome to use it anytime, a year from now. I don't care. Just email me. I will help you out in any way I possibly can, if I can, or certainly guide you and direct you to a place that might be helpful in your time of need. Because I am more than happy. I'm a caregiver. I've been a caregiver for 8 different family members and friends over the last 30 years. So I know the drill, and you guys heard the banking story, so you know I'm still doing this. And we try to do it with a sense of humor as much as we possibly can. Colleen.
Question for you. I know
Yes.
you're licensed to practice in Pennsylvania, but if any of our employees wanted to do a consult with you, are you able to do that for a fee? Or
Yes, yes. Yes, just email me and we'll set up a time to talk.
Okay.
That would be amazing. Okay, so thank you very much.